With the award season right around the corner, I thought today was a good time to take a look at all of the Oscar nominees for Best Picture, and I thought I should probably dress appropriately as well. Unlike the past few years, I feel like this year it's very competitive, as there is just a load of quality in these nominees, as before there was a few which you'd question their inclusion. Now there may be the case for one film in this list, but regardless there is still a lot of quality, so anyone's ranking could be different. Today we're going to be looking at my ranking and ranking them from worst to best, so without further ado, let's get started. Now in last place, I do have that controversial pick, yet to be honest it wasn't easily in last place. I still really liked this film and thought it was a great time. This is very much Joseph Kosinski applying his Top Gun Maverick success and putting it into racing. F1 places you into the driver's seat and makes you feel immensely immersed. You get to experience the thrills and the adrenaline of the titular sport. The way that's depicted through cinematography, special effects, and general stunt work just makes this feel very realistic and fun. Brad Pitt brings his usual charm and applies that in an interesting dynamic between him and Damson Idris. Narratively, F1 is quite familiar and predictable in a sense. It's not super complex or narratively rich like some of the other films on this list, yet through its execution of planting you in the middle of the race and feeling the thrills and just the excitement of that, it is still an immensely entertaining watch. Next up, I don't think you could get further from F1. We have sentimental value, which I liked just a tiny bit more than that film, despite them being drastically different. This is a much more quieter movie-going experience, with the focus being on this fractured family dynamic. The way that's normally depicted on the screen is through big, loud, flashy sequences between family members shouting at each other, yet here you're shown that fragility through long, uncomfortable pauses in conversation and just on facial expressions. The performances from Renata Rainsby and Stellan Skarsgård are brilliantly subtle, where you can read so much about their thought process just by facial expressions or body language. This feels more like a documentary than an actual film, as certain scenarios just feel so real with how characters interact with one another and the way that certain feelings are sort of restrained. You feel like a fly on the wall in some of these sequences, hence why it was just such an emotionally enjoyable experience. You can always expect something weird with Yorgos Lanthimos, and that is certainly the case once again with Begonia. The story follows a corporate CEO who's kidnapped by two conspiracy theorists and manages to show both perspectives in a way which doesn't really take either one's side. It just shows the flaws of both. Through this comes some thoroughly entertaining scenarios which are equally tense and hilarious, a tone which is only mastered by very few directors. It helps by having strong performances from Emma Stone, Jesse Plemons, and Aidan Delbus, who make this quirky atmosphere work. It does take more of a sci-fi approach in the final act, which I wasn't a fan of, but everything that came before that I thoroughly enjoyed. The Secret Agent explores corruption in 1970s Brazil to such a terrifying degree, whether that's through the subtle conversations of a person in power with someone who's not, or just blatant acts of corruption. Despite the slow burn nature, the whole journey is extremely tense, as there is no protection anywhere. The police are corrupt, obviously, so anything can slide more or less if the money is right. Leading the charge is Wagner Moura, who is just absolutely phenomenal here in both the loud and quieter moments. He's depicted as a flawed man, so that just makes him more sympathetic when you follow his story of just trying to get back to his son. Narratively, The Secret Agent is very unique. From a critical point of view, quite messy. It often jumps from one genre to another, tells the story out of order in many areas, and yet because of the tone and the slick style, it somehow works. It can leave you quite disorientated in moments, yet if you manage to grasp onto everything and put the pieces of the puzzle together, then it is a thoroughly rewarding watch.
I can't begin to tell you how that feels.
Big flashy moments in life are often the ones remembered and the ones pointed at when saying this is the reason for living, yet that also does go for those smaller moments, the routines you may pick up and just small interactions with people you love, and that's highlighted in Train Dreams, which focuses in on those intimate moments and the somewhat forgettable ones. Joel Edgerton personifies this perfectly, as you see this man who goes from having everything to nothing by the end. His journey through all of that is such a tough watch, made further emotional thanks to his performance. The film is very simple narratively, yet obviously it's the themes that come from it. They are further enhanced from the most breathtaking visuals you would have seen in 2025. Honestly, from the scenery to the way they are shot, it just makes for such a emotionally beautiful film, and one of the thematically richer ones of the year. In typical Safdie fashion, Marty Supreme is an absolute tense journey from start to finish. Honestly, it just feels like it's going 100 miles per hour from the get-go, and honestly that perfectly coincides with the titular character. Marty Mauser is an absolutely despicable human, yet through his sheer persistence and naivety, it's hard not to be fascinated by his journey. A journey which is chaotic and messy through the constant lack of self-awareness, which goes back towards characters he had previously wronged, or attempts at making it to the big times consistently failing. Now, because of the sheer chaoticness and of the narrative, it could easily be criticized. However, I feel like because we're following such a flawed man's journey on his path to success in his eyes, it makes sense, as nothing about him is tidy and organized with a properly thought out plan. Chuck in some great supporting characters alongside Chalamet's performance, breathtaking visuals, and just an overall adrenaline-fueled story, then it was hard not to have an enjoyable time with this.
Turner down the rocky road and all the way to Dublin, what for Lolita.
Also, I feel like most people would accept any form of ranking of these Oscar nominees. I do feel like the one which might stick out is not having Sinners in your top 2, and obviously that's what I've done this time. For the record, I thoroughly enjoyed this film a lot and have the same praises that most people do. I just enjoyed the other films on this list a bit more. The general premise is a genius one, yet when you pass it on to Ryan Coogler, obviously he's just going to enhance it even more. The combination of horror and periodical drama elements merge perfectly well in exploring the dark themes. From that, the story just never slows down in the best kind of way, and just dials up the tension as it goes along. Stellar performances along the way, notably from Michael B. Jordan in 2 different roles, help ensure that you really care for these characters and what happens throughout this night. Amongst all of the carnage, the focus on music as well just merges beautifully with everything, and the way it's glorified here is just so breathtaking in areas. Not often you watch a vampire film and acknowledge the beauty amongst all of the blood, yet you somehow manage to with Sinners. Guillermo del Toro's gothic style with the iconic Frankenstein novel seemed like the perfect combination, and alas, that is the case here. His dark visual style with superb cinematography serves as the perfect backdrop for this tale to play out. He manages to do justice to the spectacle and also the thought-provoking moments, which just make you so emotionally invested in the story. That is further enhanced by an absolutely brilliant performance from Jacob Elordi, who really shows he can perform in a dramatic role. It's so fascinating to watch the dynamic of his character and Oscar Isaac's as well, as you slowly start to see them change places metaphorically. You never feel the runtime, and to be honest, I feel like it could have actually benefited from slightly longer. Yet alas, it was such a heartbreakingly beautiful, tragic story, which I enjoyed a lot more than I thought I would. Speaking of enjoying something more than I thought I would, Hamnet was exactly that. I knew this was going to be good, yeah. I felt as though a lot of these films on this list are much more directed towards my sort of interests, yet somehow this one came in at second place. I say somehow, it's instantly apparent that this is a beautifully depicted film from its style, its cinematography, costumes, and of course, performances. Now, performances can only really be as good as dialogue, and that dialogue is perfectly tailored for some absolutely heart-wrenching sequences. Jesse Buckley, Paul Mescal, and the young Jacoby Jupe are absolute standouts here, whose emotional range is so heartbreaking here that it It just leaves you feeling hollow afterwards. The exploration of managing grief is obviously deployed in different ways between Jessie Buckley's character and Paul Mescal's, and that way that all culminates in such an emotionally rich ending just leaves you on the floor. It's an immensely heartbreaking story which is just enhanced through performances and through a script which manages to keep you invested from start to finish. And that leads us to my number one pick for the Oscar Best Picture, which is one battle after another, and that could so easily be the case as this film has been sweeping up in awards alongside Sinners. It is so hard to find that sweet spot of being equally funny and dramatic, and this film just thrives in that case. Just like Begonia, this film doesn't shy away from showing both perspectives of each side. It shows the flaws in both dramatic fashion and somewhat hilarious as well. To no surprise, the way that these plot points play out are essential to ensuring that this has such an unstoppable momentum from the get-go, and it never really dies down until the credits roll. The cast is stacked, so it's no surprise that the performances from Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, and Benicio del Toro are absolutely brilliant, as is the performance from newcomer Chase Infinity. They all understood the assignment and managed to pull off acting in both dramatic moments and comedic ones. For a film which is nearly 3 hours long, I felt as though narratively this just ran so smoothly and that time passed instantly. The charm is so infectious and enjoyable that I had no choice but to rank this at first spot, as, to be honest, it's one of the best films I've seen this decade. So that was my ranking of all 10 nominees for the Oscar Best Picture 2026. Please let me know what your ranking is down below, as I feel like this is a big one, and I'm sure there'll be many rankings who don't agree with mine, which is the great thing about these award ceremonies. I'm also going to be ranking the Best Picture winners of the 2020s once these Oscars are over, which annoyingly occur early hours of the morning for me on Monday. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy and don't hate my lists. So if that is the case, if you could like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope to see you in my next video.